Have you ever stopped and wondered why organizations, anything from a tiny startup to a massive public company, even nonprofits, government bodies, why they bring in these, well, often very high-priced outside experts? Seems like it's usually much more complex than just needing a quick bit of advice, right?
Absolutely. It really is.
So today, we're doing one of our deep dives. We're going into the world of management consulting, really pulling back the curtain on the core reasons, the motivations that lead all sorts of organizations to partner up with consultants.
And the material we're drawing from today, it gives this incredibly detailed breakdown. It goes way beyond just the surface level stuff you might think of. Really gets into the nuances.
Yeah, so our mission here, for you listening, is to pull out the most important nuggets. We'll explore, everything from the obvious need for special skills to some, frankly, really surprising strategic maneuvers. And we'll show you what this tells us about the challenges organizations face, how they grow, maybe even some of the internal power dynamics.
Right. And how these external partners can actually become catalysts for real transformation, giving access to cutting-edge knowledge, helping leverage opportunities.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's kick things off with what seems like maybe the most intuitive reason. Getting that specialized expertise and, importantly, an external perspective.
Yeah.
It's really about getting insights you just don't have easily available inside the company.
That's exactly right. It's often the starting point. Consultants, they bring deep, sometimes even proprietary knowledge in, say, specific industries or functions like major transformations or navigating really complex regulations, maybe market entry strategies.
Stuff that's hard to build internally overnight.
Precisely. It's not just general business sense. It could be unique frameworks they've developed, data from loads of past projects, maybe even learning from what didn't work for other clients.
Ah, interesting. Things an internal team just wouldn't see.
Exactly. And crucially, they bring that objective viewpoint. Because they're outsiders, they're free from the internal politics, the sacred cows every company has.
Right.
So they can challenge assumptions, identify blind spots, ideally without that internal bias.
And they see what other companies are doing too, I suppose.
That's the cross-pollination idea. They work across so many clients, different industries. They can take, best practices from a super agile tech firm and think, how could this apply to a traditional manufacturer?
That's powerful.
It helps organizations adopt strategies that are already proven and hopefully avoid some common pitfalls along the way.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And, okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me thinking about innovation. Organizations today face challenges nobody's ever seen before. They need genuinely new ideas, right? Not just tweaks.
Spot on. Internal teams, they can get bogged down in the day-to-day, right? Constrained by routine, maybe this is how we've always done it thinking.
Yeah, the inertia.
Exactly. So consultants, with that broad exposure, they're often better positioned to introduce truly fresh approaches, things the internal folks might just overlook.
And what about risk? Big changes are risky.
Oh, definitely. Their role in risk management is significant. Imagine a company entering a totally new international market or launching a product that's completely different from anything they've done before.
High stakes.
Very. Consultants bring expertise in assessing those risks, mitigating them. It's about safeguarding the organization from potentially, catastrophic missteps.
Okay, but what if the organization knows it needs to change? They see the need, but they just seem stuck. Maybe internal disagreements or just unable to get started. That's where a consultant comes in as more than just an advisor, right? They act as a catalyst.
A catalyst for change. That's often exactly why they're brought in, to challenge that status quo you mentioned.
Right.
They don't just float ideas.
Yeah.
They actively facilitate the adoption of new strategies.
Right.
And this is key. They can sometimes neutralize internal politics
So?
by bringing a neutral, data-driven perspective to difficult conversations, maybe mediating between departments. It just creates a more conducive environment for actual change to happen.
And with tech changing so fast.
Yeah. Huge point. Consultants bridge those knowledge gaps. They're constantly immersed in market trends, emerging tech. They can transfer that really current understanding to the client.
So they're educating the client team too. In a way.
Yes, knowledge transfer is often part of it. And all this expertise, the broad view, the tech knowledge helps them facilitate strategic decision-making. They build the complex models, run the analyses, assess the risks, guiding senior management on those really critical choices about the company's future.
That's fascinating. So, okay, let's shift gears a bit. What does all this mean for, the internal workings and even the company's image? Because here's one reason you mentioned that, you might not expect. Consultants playing a role in managing perceptions, both inside and out.
Right. This is one of those less talked about but really impactful aspects. A big one is sometimes helping to shift blame for unpopular decisions.
Ah, okay. Tell me more.
Well, it's a pragmatic reality, isn't it? Executives are under pressure. Sometimes difficult decisions have to be made, layoffs, big cost cuts, painful restructuring.
Things nobody wants to announce.
Exactly. So organizations might leverage consultants to be the ones recommending these tough actions. The narrative then becomes, the consultants recommended it. It can deflect some of the blame from internal leaders.
That's a delicate political maneuver.
It can be. It acknowledges the pressures executives are under. Another key thing is providing that stamp of external approval.
Like validation.
Precisely. The credibility of a well-known consulting firm can legitimize a proposal, especially to a board of directors or major stakeholders. Think about getting buy-in for a massive investment or a really disruptive project.
Yeah, if the internal team proposes it, maybe there's skepticism. But if famous firm X says it's the way to go.
It carries weight. It can be crucial for getting things approved. Then there's the role they play bridging the gap between the front lines and the top brass.
How does that work?
Well, sometimes critical insights from people actually doing the work, on the ground level, they get lost or filtered as they go up the chain.
Sure, happens all the time.
So consultants can act as a conduit. They conduct candid interviews, run surveys, workshops. They gather that raw, unfiltered input to make sure strategic decisions are actually grounded in operational reality.
That sounds incredibly useful.
It really can be. And one more practical point here, just providing skilled people for a temporary project.
Ah, like temporary reinforcements.
Kind of, but highly specialized. Think about launching a new product, implementing a complex new IT system, or handling a merger or acquisition. These need specific skills, but maybe only for 6 months or a year.
Right, you don't want to hire full-time permanent staff for that.
Exactly. Consultants offer that flexibility and efficiency. You get the skills you need for the time you need them without the long-term overhead.
Okay, so moving beyond these sort of specific fixes or roles, consultants are often brought in for something even bigger, right? Driving really significant, maybe organization-wide change and transformation.
Absolutely. If you connect the dots, many organizations hit these points where they need more than tweaks. They need fundamental reinvention.
A whole new direction.
Right. Consultants are key in that strategic reinvention, guiding pivots to new business models, maybe entering completely new markets, reimagining core products. They bring strategic frameworks, action plans.
And they manage the process, too.
Yes, using structured methodologies. Think things like Agile, Lean Six Sigma, those kinds of established playbooks. They manage the whole complex change process, from the initial strategy idea right through to the nitty-gritty implementation. And that includes both the technical side and the crucial human element.
Like operational efficiency. Is that part of it?
Oh, always. Analyzing and redesigning workflows, processes, systems, looking for ways to improve efficiency, cut costs, boost productivity, making the organization leaner, faster, more competitive.
So you mentioned the human element. Transformation isn't just about flowcharts and systems. It's deeply about people, about the culture, isn't it?
It absolutely is, and often the hardest part. Consultants can be instrumental in cultural change, helping shift those deeply ingrained ways of working, corporate culture, to actually support the new strategic direction.
That sounds tough.
It is. It involves clear communication of the vision, really engaging employees at all levels, making them part of the change, not just subject to it.
And digital transformation.
Sure.
Everyone's talking about that.
A huge area. Consultants offer expertise in selecting the right technologies, not just the fanciest ones, and then implementing them effectively, making sure they align with the overall strategy and integrate smoothly, which is often where things fall down.
Right. And managing the resistance. Change is hard for people.
Crucial role. They provide change management support. That neutral perspective helps navigate the inevitable organizational resistance. They use techniques to engage stakeholders, really communicate the why, the benefits, and build that essential buy-in.
So after they've done all this work, designed the new processes, helped with the culture, how do they make sure it actually sticks? That the organization doesn't just snap back to the old ways once the consultants leave?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? A big focus is on capacity building, meaning they work to build the client's internal ability to sustain the new ways of working. This isn't just dropping a report and leaving. It involves training, coaching leaders, maybe helping set up new internal teams or structures to support the changes long-term.
So teaching them to fish, not just giving them a fist.
That's a good way to put it. And remember that cross-pollination point, leveraging best practices and innovations.
Right, bringing ideas from elsewhere.
Exactly. Their insight across industries brings those external best practices, innovative ideas internal teams might never encounter. That directly boosts competitiveness long term. And sometimes, in periods of really intense change, they might even provide interim leadership.
Like stepping into a temporary executive role.
Yes, maybe a chief transformation officer role or something similar, just to maintain momentum and ensure everything stays aligned with the big strategic goals while the organization adjusts.
Okay, fascinating. So finally, let's wrap up this deep dive by looking at how consultants tackle very specific, maybe targeted problems or help organizations grab hold of new opportunities that might be hiding in plain sight.
Right, because it's not always about massive transformation. Sometimes it's a specific, thorny challenge. Consultants come equipped with their analytical toolkits, industry knowledge, problem-solving skills. They conduct really thorough analyses and develop tailored solutions.
And that industry expertise matters here too.
Hugely. Many firms specialize healthcare, finance, energy, whatever it is. They offer incredibly deep insights and advice tailored to the unique dynamics of that specific market segment. It's not just generic business advice.
Makes sense. And what about growth? Finding new ways to expand.
That's often a key reason they're hired. Identifying and helping exploit potential growth areas. Maybe it's a new geographic market, a new product line, or just optimizing current operations for more throughput. They bring that fresh perspective, sometimes combined with what they call growth hacking experience.
Growth hacking.
Yeah, it's like a very iterative, data-driven approach to scaling things up quickly, finding what works and doubling down.
Interesting. And how about just getting better day to day? Continuous improvement. Or even handling a crisis.
Definitely. For continuous improvement, they're great at implementing best practices, benchmarking the client against industry leaders, identifying gaps, and then helping close them to improve efficiency, maybe customer satisfaction, their competitive position. It's about measurable gains.
Still helping with decisions, too.
Yes, facilitating strategic decision-making is a constant thread, using data analytics, scenario planning, risk assessment, providing objective analysis to guide leadership on critical choices. And in a crisis, they can be invaluable.
How so?
They provide critical crisis management support, offering a calm, objective assessment when maybe internal emotions are running high, helping develop clear response strategies, guiding leadership towards recovery.
Like a steady hand in a storm.
A good analogy.
And finally, what about the really tangible stuff? Operations, finances.
Absolutely central. Facilitating operational improvements is common. Analyzing the supply chain, production processes, quality control, finding bottlenecks, implementing solutions to boost efficiency, reliability.
And if a company is really struggling financially,
Then they often lead financial performance improvement and restructuring efforts. Deep financial analysis, aggressive cost reduction plans, maybe debt restructuring, identifying the critical levers to pull, implementing turnaround strategies to get the company back to sustainable growth.
wow. Okay, we have definitely gone way beyond the simple idea of just getting some advice today.
Right.
It's clear there was this huge range of reasons, some quite surprising, why organizations bring in management consultants.
Yeah, what's really fascinating when you lay it all out is how they function not just as problem solvers, but truly as strategic partners. Partners for growth, for transformation, and even for navigating those sometimes tricky internal and external dynamics we talked about.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? This raises an important question, I think, for you listening. Knowing all these different motivations now, how might you approach the idea of external advice differently? Or maybe even how you interpret it when you hear about a big company bringing in consultants for a major strategic review. Perhaps understanding the why behind hiring them helps you understand the organization itself a little better. Maybe even spot potential solutions or challenges you hadn't considered before.
It really does. When you think about all the different hats consultants wear and that complex web of reasons driving businesses to seek outside help, it reveals a tremendous amount about the pressures, the ambitions, and maybe even the hidden vulnerabilities of modern organizations. It gives you a whole new lens, really, to view the business world.